The COVID-19 pandemic is taking a toll on St. Lucia's tourism-driven economy, forcing the government to come up with fairly inventive ways of honoring its workers' wages. In a recent meeting with public sector unions, Prime Minister and Minister for Finance Allen Chastanet tabled a proposal which includes a mix of cash and bonds for the top tier of the public service. For the lower ranks, grades 1 to 6, there would be no change to their checks, but the higher ranks are being offered their monthly salaries as of the end of April, part in cash, part in bonds.
The government is not proposing any form of pay cuts. The government is honoring its collective agreement. What we have realized, and we've realized for some time, starting back in March, where I've been making pronouncements to the general public and to everyone, that we need to get into the idea of rationing. This is not an ordinary time. And so we had started meetings with the unions. April 2nd was the first meeting. We had 4 meetings between April 2nd and April 15th. In order for the ministry to have been able to make the first presentation, it means that we were anticipating what was going on. And we started to see the impact of COVID on the economy back in March.
The public sector unions are mulling over the offer. In a note sent to members of the Civil Service Association, CSA, the union says given the social distancing guidelines, it would have to be creative in convening the important meeting with them to discuss this crucial issue. The note outlines the details of the government's proposal to the public sector unions. The CSA says such a matter requires the input of all members. This is not a storm, perfect or imperfect. It's a coincidence of crises. What started as a healthcare crisis has created an economic crisis with all of its implications.
We have these bonds that are turning over. So these bonds are an accumulation of debt over a long period of time. And sadly, St. Lucia has not been in the practice since 1997 of actually creating a sinking fund. So when those bonds come due, you pay off the bonds. And this is why you keep hearing me talk about the need for a sinking fund so we can get out of this cycle of debt. So we have $700 million of bonds that we have to roll over this year. In the month of April, $65 million of those bonds become due. Now, given the crisis, it is fair to assume that not everybody is going to be interested in rolling over their bonds. Some people are going to want to cash out their bonds, and therefore government has to be in the position to pay the cash to those individuals. Because if we miss that payment, we go into what's called a technical default, and all of the overdraft facilities we've negotiated with the banks and the discussions we're having with CDB and the IFIs, all those discussions would change if we're in a technical default.
St. Lucia's heavy reliance on tourism means with visitor numbers near zero, both government and private sector revenues have effectively dried up.
Who have nobody to appeal to. And so the bill that we're coming to pass today is to amend the NIC Act, because NIC was not designed to make payments for income loss. So we're creating an emergency component to NIC to give them the latitude to pump in $100 million to be able to help those people who've been making contributions to NIC. And what? We're not replacing their salaries. Depending on what you were earning, between $500 and $1,500 a month. All of us are going to have to learn how to survive on less.
With more than 30,000 jobs lost as a consequence of COVID-19, the Parliament met Tuesday to, among other things, amend the National Insurance Corporation legislation to allow the NIC to assist those who, because of COVID-19, have joined the now swollen ranks of the unemployed. Stanley Lucian for the HTS News Force.